Commissioners, item number 5 is an application for certificate of appropriateness in Borough of Manhattan. It's 38 Greene Street, located within the Soho Cast Iron Historic District. It's docket number 163954, block 474, lot 26. A store and warehouse building with French and Italianate-style elements designed by Griffith Thomas and built in 1867. The application is to construct a rooftop addition. This was first presented on December 9th, 2014.
Is that good for everybody? Should we move to the center?
That's good.
All right, good morning. Victor Chmonic, preservation staff. This is proposals for a 2-story metal and glass addition that is set back from both facades. It is visible from multiple but limited vantage points. At the 12/9 public hearing, some commissioners were in support of the proposal as presented. Others were concerned with understanding the visibility and the relationship of the addition to the facades. The design team is here to explain some of the clarifications and revisions.
We'll reopen the hearing.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you very much for seeing us again. We've looked at the three areas that were in question last time. We were looking at understanding the precedent and the typology a little bit more. We were looking at understanding visibility, and we were looking at understanding massing. In this case, I just want to start with precedents. One of the comments made had a lot to do with just understanding this and its scale and its massiveness and that sort of thing. And I think one of the things I want to point out, and it's sort of obvious, is that when you look at any precedent from the bird's eye view, they are large. When you see them from the street level, you either have limited or no visibility of any of these precedents. So we did look at some of the precedents in the area. We got on the top of some of the rooftops to understand the typology and the size of these precedents, to understand how they step back both on the first floor and the second floor. This one, for example, steps back less than ours does. This one steps back more than ours does. And then to look at some of the other typology, the other precedents in the area. This just up the street, very large. When viewed from the top of the building, is a very large mass, but not visible from below. Very limited visibility from below. So again, just to put that into perspective, to understand the relationship of our addition to our building. The second thing is these are all on smaller buildings. Our building, for what it's worth, happens to be one of the larger buildings in the area. So we believe, and you can see that in the model, that our addition is proportional to our building, as these are maybe or maybe not proportional to their building. Second, we looked at visibility. There were a number of comments about views that we had not seen. So we went and took those views, we looked at specifically those areas. Here you're standing along Church Street, and our building is right here. And this is with the mock-up, the sort of erected mock-up that's on the roof right now, and we've actually dropped in the model. Again, for what it's worth, we dropped in the rendering, and you can see it sort of right here, and you can see it again. It's a blow-up view, it's right there. One thing to, and this is the same view, other end of this view, we're literally talking about right there and right there. One thing to note about this view is we understand that 11 Greene is in development, has been permitted by DOB, permitted by you as well. So once this site is developed, that view will disappear, as will this view also. So both of those, once the project gets built, at 11 Greene no longer are visible. The other views we looked at, this view is from 2 blocks away. We've shaded the area where you can actually see the back side of the addition. In this case, you're looking at the back over here, this piece of bulkhead. The limited visibility, it is completely disconnected from 38 Greene. There's no contextual relationship between the addition and ours. You can see the massing here. You can see the massing here. We're choosing a material, in this case on the back of the building, that is tonally related to the buildings around it. We want this to be sort of a contextual blend, so that it blends with the other buildings in the area. You can see that same view here blown up, and you can see it sort of right up here. It goes no higher than the existing mechanical installation on the adjacent building. So this is the cluster that you're looking at, again, 2 blocks away through that slot. Here, 1 block away, you can see that tiny little shaded area. This is, well, you really actually can't see anything right in that picture. This is that sliver, again, disconnected from the building itself, limited visibility, and there's a blow up of that shot. Lastly, there is a sliver right here. where it is visible right up in here and right up in here. And there's a blow-up of that shot. Again, disconnected from 38 Greene. It rises up along with some of the mechanical bulkheads over 42 Greene. Lastly, from back here, this one is very, very difficult to see, but it happens right over this sign. And this is against the, I think that's the AT&T or that the telephone building. There's a little sliver right in here, a little sliver right in here, and then again, that's the sliver of limited visibility for this building. So you have to see, from all these points, you can see these are very, very small moments, and they're all disconnected from the building itself. Lastly, I want to just address massing. There was a discussion about, can we do anything to look at the massing? We did. We took the bulkhead, the large bulkhead off the roof. There was a mechanical penthouse here. We also had the elevator going up to the roof. We've removed that. The elevator no longer goes to the roof. You can see that on the model itself. We've adjusted the bulkhead there. So the bulkhead itself comes down about 2.5 feet. And the largest part of the visibility, which is from the back side, from the Broadway side, we've reduced that massing. We did study changing the floor-to-floor height. It really had no impact on the building itself. We looked at changing the massing. It had no impact on the visibility. And frankly, it would have just compromised the Class A space that the tenant was trying to achieve. So it had no positive impact. So we did leave those things as they were. And here you can see the shaded areas where we've removed massing. And you can see it here. We've removed that massing. And again, our proposal with some of the contextual and other pieces. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there questions for the applicant? Any questions?
So what was
Yes.
the worst, what was the worst viewpoint, visibility point?
Greatest visibility, she's asking.
Greatest
The
visibility.
greatest, yes.
The greatest visibility
Thank you, Dean, it's greatest.
is in that slot coming off of Broadway, where you're looking at the top of the bulkhead, which is the back of this building, the back of the model right here. That is the point of greatest visibility.
Any other questions? Oh, okay, thank you. We can close the hearing. Second, okay. All right, comments and questions? Or not questions, but comments? No, I can go first if you'd like. I know the first time I saw this, maybe part of it was the presentation material, but because they had an exonometric which had orange and just sort of screamed out to what this enlargement was, and I appreciate that they've taken the time to sort of explain to us really what this is. I guess there are two issues that sort of was in my mind that I think this presentation has helped me understand to make me feel more supportive of the project. I think one is that just in terms of rooftop additions, we do as a commission look at its visibility, and I think the analysis that they provided to us really does show that especially from the front and the main two facades, it's really very, very minimal and at great distance. So while it's not completely invisible, its visibility is very, very limited. From the rear, where I think it's larger and you actually can see it through the alleyway, and I believe that's the Jean Nouvel Mercer Hotel complex that you see it through. It reads as the back of a building, which I think we see all the time in Soho, and I think that kind of bulk is very in keeping. I think the second concern I had was really in the fact that there were 2 floors, and so what was the scale of this enlargement and its treatment itself. And I think they've shown us that, in fact, the idea of having 2 floors enlargements is not inconsistent with the neighborhood, that in fact the commission has allowed that in the past, and that different buildings have that, and they sit well with the district. So the idea of having 2 floors set back, I think, again, given that it has limited visibility, is appropriate. I think the other issue was just the treatment itself. I think that I was persuaded by some of the comments that the applicant presented, which is the scale of the additions has a relationship to the scale of the building itself. And sometimes you have smaller buildings that perhaps the enlargement overwhelms, but in this particular case, it's a large building, and therefore having a two-floor addition, in terms of its massing, is not necessarily inappropriate, given that you have a building of a certain size. I think that the architecture and treatment of the building is whimsical and playful, and perhaps not the most similar to some of the other rooftop additions that we've seen, but I don't think that necessarily detracts from being within the historic district. I think it's actually very attractive, and I think that as a commission, I don't feel compelled to try and constrain creativity and architectural expression, particularly in a place where there are other mitigating factors, including its visibility. So I think from that perspective, I feel that this addition is warranted and would meet the criteria of appropriateness.
I agree with what you've said.
Yes.
Well, I would add, I agree 100%. I would just, in looking at the precedents that they showed us of rooftop additions, what I think distinguishes this one and a few others that we've seen the last couple of years is that this one is not only relatively invisible from the public way or minimally visible, but if one were to look at it as an upper floor person, it's not unpleasant to look at, and it engages with the building below in an architectural, purposeful dialogue that the precedents that they show do not share. And I think that is a good thing. I think it's a good thing for the district. I think it's a good thing for districts in general and for the commission, that when we approve things, they shouldn't just be junky and unpleasant, even if they aren't visible. I think that holding it to a higher, from the public way, that is. So I think that this does do that, and I think it's a good project.
Just to be clear, the visibility of this from upper floors of other buildings is not an issue that we deal with. It's visibility from a public way, which is to say that one angle that we saw, the worst case scenario comes from the back side of it, that doesn't even involve the more creative side of the structure.
Well, just to be clear, the massing of it, I mean, when you talk about visibility and design, we obviously are always looking at design, and that visibility from the public way is the primary determination. But the scale of this, the reason if this was completely invisible, it would still be before you at the commission because it's a two-story proposal. So the issue of scale and its relative scale to the historic building is always always before you, regardless of its visibility.
Yes, Diana.
Yeah, I think I find that the applicant has, by looking at the giving us more of the context and visibility, that was very helpful. And I also think that the massing, in reviewing it again, that it's a fairly large building, that it's a large addition, but I think that it can take this size of addition given the size of the building. So I think that the massing, while I had some concern, as others did, about that initially, I feel that I can support this.
All right. Any other comments, or we can move to decision? Okay. Chris, would you like to read that, please?
Sure. To the matter of 38 Greene Street, Soho Cast Iron Historic District, application is to construct a rooftop addition. I recommend approval, finding that the construction of the proposed two-story rooftop addition will not result in loss or damage to any Significant architectural feature of the roof that the scale and massing of the proposed rooftop addition and bulkheads, which will be stepped and set back from the primary facades, will not overwhelm this large corner building. That the proposed addition will be only minimally visible from limited vantage points close to the building, and though it will be more visible from a great distance to the south and east, it will be unobtrusive and seen in context with foreground buildings and numerous rooftop structures. That the form of the proposed addition, featuring curved corners at both levels, will relate to the variety of forms traditionally found on rooftops, including water tanks, skylights, and other rooftop accretions. That the modular design and rhythm of the proposed rooftop addition harmonizes with the repetitive, unitized design of the existing facade and similar masonry and cast iron facades at other buildings in the historic district. That the materials of the proposed rooftop addition, featuring clear glazing and panelized aluminum with a gray finish, will be consistent with the materiality of various rooftop structures and installations in the historic district. Finally, that the proposed work will not detract from the special architectural or historic character of the building or Soho Cast Iron Historic District.
All in favor? Any opposed? The application's been approved.